And right now, China actually relaxed the rules for foreign travelers. Now they're waiving visa for many countries, mostly European countries, though. So I'm sorry, Jeremy. I don't know if South
No,
Africa
we
is
can.
on the list.
We can. We're
Oh
part of
yeah.
BRICS.
Ah, okay, okay. I didn't know. But
Mm.
what I mean is right now they have like a visa waiver. Like you don't need
Mm.
uh if you're from Malaysia, France, and Germany, you can just go to China without visa for 30 days. I
Oh,
mean
that's great.
that yeah, that's great. So because right now they're trying to invite people to come back to China after COVID. And so they're doing everything
Mm.
like a transit visa. If you have a if you have you can show an airplane ticket that you're going to, for example, you're going to Shanghai, but you can show that you're leaving Shanghai after a week, then you don't need visa. They call it 6 days transit visa. So you don't need visa as long as you show that you're flying out of China at the end of 6 days. So it's made super easy now, and they also
Mm.
work out a deal where Alipay now can link up with your foreign bank accounts. Before you have to have a Chinese bank account if you want to use WeChat Pay or Alipay, and mobile payment is super like easy in China. But if you don't, it's a pain in the ass if you don't have a Chinese bank account. Because my dad, he tried to get a Chinese bank account, and my cousin's like, oh, I got your hookup. I know somebody in Chinese bank who will hook you up. Took us 3 hours. Three
Sure.
hours to get him a Chinese bank. But now you don't have to go through that trouble. Now Alipay, you can hook up with your foreign credit card. Of, you know what, Jeremy? You and I, we need to do a China trip in the future.
I'm
I'll
keen.
show you around.
A, a friend of mine
I'll
is
show
is
you
there
around.
right
Yeah.
now. A South African friend of mine. He left last week. He's right now in China. He's and I hope he makes it back. With all that authoritarianism going on there.
This is we should go there. Just do like live streaming from Tiananmen Square, like and live streaming to YouTube or something. I don't know, like
But
just go ahead.
look, what I'm trying to figure out is
Mhm.
why China? Why does the West, particularly USA number one, hate China so much? I can't figure it out.
I a lot of the people in the U.S. when they talk about China, they're not even talking about the real thing. They're not even talking about the real country. They're talking about projection from their own head. What China
Yeah.
they think is, which is what they read in the mainstream news media, by the way. and so their idea of this bizarre world of China, which is what they're set against, because they haven't really seen the real thing yet. And but for a lot of the U.S. leaders, like U.S. elite, I think it's more about hegemony because U.S. has been the top dog for since the World War II, and they cannot fathom a world where U.S. is no longer number one. And it looks like China is poised to take that number one spot. And for a lot of people, they just can't psychologically they can't take it. It's like it's like, oh no, we are supposed to be the leader of the free world. We are the big world's best democracy. How can China overtake us? Only explanation: the Chinese cheated. They are cheating. That's why they're
and,
passing us.
and not only are they cheating, they're also stealing everything from America.
They stole the 5G technology. That's why U.S. does not have 5G because Chinese stole it.
Yeah. That's because Trump stopped Huawei.
Huawei, yeah. I mean,
Huawei, yeah.
like they are really going all out because Huawei released a consumer phone, a cell phone. They're like U.S. is now applying more tech sanction on China because they say it's a national security issue. Because of course everything is a national security issue. Even garlic is a national security issue.
Garlic.
I mean, everything goes back to garlic. I'm sorry.
What was
I love garlic.
all roads lead to garlic. What was that story? I think it was a BBC story where they were talking about China, and it was to do with the space mission or something, and the picture was a drone or a surveillance camera or something.
Oh
Do
yes,
you remember
the
that?
surveillance camera on the moon. No, a Chinese surveillance camera on the moon. It's like, damn, they got there before we did, you know? That's our idea. We're gonna put a surveillance camera there, but those are Chinese. And yeah, I mean, right now there's a lot of fear of the West being eclipsed by
Mm,
China somehow, which is really odd because if you really think about it, China has like what the world's almost 20% of the world's population. One in
mm,
every five person on this planet is Chinese. And why wouldn't China's economy be the number one? That to me is a natural order of the things, which, China has held that spot for thousands of years. It only got recently eclipsed by the West after the West had its industrial revolution, which only happened in like the last 200 years. And now after 200 years, China has caught up. China industrialized, so it's returning to natural balance of things. By the sheer pop size of their population, China is going to come out ahead. And the U.S. is trying to do everything it can to slow down China's progress, which is not
yeah.
working because, you know, let let's face it, nothing U.S. has tried in the past 5 6 years has worked that much. Ukraine war, it's not working. The sanction on Russia, it's not working. Sanction on China is not working. What it did is it forced the acceleration of de-dollarization, especially with the Russian sanction. And
Mm.
now everybody's suddenly waking up. It's like, why do we use US dollar anymore when we buy everything made in China? It's like you don't need US dollars to import from China anymore. You can just pay them in RMB, and then
Yeah.
we ship them goods. So that's when you have people like Marco Rubio get really scared. He actually said de-dollarization is coming. It's in 5 years. Even if we want to place sanctions on the world, we can't because people are get off the dollar. Well, that's the point, little Marco. That's the whole point. Is people are tired of the U.S. sanctions.
Carl, I think my question earlier about not understanding the hatred towards Chinese from the American side of things was I think it's a fact that people, at least in my anecdotal experience, particularly Americans, seem to think that Chinese citizens are the same as the Chinese government, and they aren't able to separate the two. And this is a big problem because I've spoken to people many times, and they think that eating a dog is a normal thing to do in China, but that's the same type of of moronic attitude that I see about South Africa. Oh, you must have elephants and lions walking around your house. I get that all the time. True story.
Jeremy, like you are giving people way too much credit. We're talking about like United States. They don't even tell the difference between like the Chinese or the Vietnamese or the
Oh
Japanese
yeah.
or Korean. You think they're gonna tell the difference between Chinese people and the government? I mean, come on. That's like, well, what is that? That mean image? There's a mean image that there's a woman that says American people, to put it, is not very intellectual, to put it mildly. I mean,
Shame.
that's the truth. That's the truth. It's like, but the thing is, American businesses actually doing gangbusters in China. Like in China, KFC. There's a KFC in every street corner. And of course, the Chinese KFC tastes better than American KFC because they actually localize their cuisine. So they have all these
And
like
they use dogs and garlic. That's why.
more flavorful, I tell you. And and this is a sad thing, is because as like when I came out of the United States, everything, even American fast food, tastes better. Like American Coca-Cola tastes better outside the United States because back in US they use the high fructose corn syrup, and here in Indonesia they actually use the Coca-Cola is actually has real cane sugar. So, this is why in America people smuggle in Mexican Coca-Cola because the Mexican Coca-Cola has real sugar in it. And I took my wife. I took my wife to US for the first time. This time because my wife and my kid hasn't seen my parents yet. And so I took them to the American fast food restaurant, Carl's Jr., because I had to take my son to Carl's Jr. And my wife's like, "Oh my God, I can't taste the chicken. It's like this chicken is really tasteless." Then I told her, "It's like this. You don't understand. In Indonesia, you raise a. How long do you raise a chicken?" She's like, "Oh, about 7 months." I told her, "Look, in America, the chicken goes from egg to your dinner plate in 43 days." That's a
Yeah.
difference. That's you're tasting all the antibiotics and growth hormones, whereas like Indonesia, you're actually tasting a real natural chicken. But this is that's why I highly encourage people to travel, man. Like when you
Yeah.
get out of US, get out of your country, whatever, you gain a whole brand new perspective. But one thing, the Coca-Cola may taste better, and the McDonald's might actually taste better. I tell you, Burger King, McDonald's in Bali, Indonesia tastes way better than United States.
I I must admit, I do feel sorry though for Americans because it sounds like we're slam dunking them the whole time. But I mean, I was in Amsterdam 2 months ago, and I was talking to some Europeans there, and they were like, the Americans are so stupid. And because we were at a museum looking at some art, and they couldn't even, and our tour guide was telling us how Americans can't even pronounce Dutch artists' names correctly. I mean, if you're going to go to, say, the Van Gogh Museum.
Wait. They expect them to pronounce the Dutch artist's name in Dutch correctly, like in Dutch accent. I mean, come on, you're asking too much. People, come on.
So technically,
we're talking about a country that invented the freedom fries, right? Freedom.
Right.
Do you
right.
remember freedom fries?
Yes. So technically, it's if you're talking about the artist Van Gogh, it's actually not Van Gogh. It's technically Van Gogh or Van Gogh. Okay. But it's difficult for a lot of people to say. But our tour guide said to us, at least say Van Gogh. But no, the Americans, they say Van Gogh.
Yeah, Van Gogh. Yeah, that's the American way, man. I didn't know there's another pronunciation.
She actually said, she said, yeah. So she said to me, she says, I like Americans, but when I take them on a tour of the museum, they don't know which artist I'm talking about when I say Van Gogh. She says,
that's a classic.
She says I have to dumb down his name for the American tourists.
You have to say Van Gogh. Van Gogh. Let me introduce you to our national treasure, Van Gogh. Then they're like, oh, wow, Van Gogh, wow. Yeah.
But it's not the Americans' fault. I mean, it's media. It's propaganda. I mean, the machine, the establishment machine, is very well oiled, and it's extremely pervasive and persuasive in the United States.
I mean, I traveled, so I went back to U.S. After being away for 4.5 years. I must say, like average people in U.S., average Americans on the street, they're just as friendly as I remember. They're still very friendly. Like in a person level, I don't think they necessarily hold out any animosity against China or Chinese people per se.
Yeah.
But they, like you said, they get force fed all these propaganda either by osmosis or these like blatant distortions from their media. So they're led to believe like this bizarro world exists out there, which only exists in the papers of New York Times. And you're right. Like Mark Twain says, people who don't, if you don't read newspapers, you're uninformed. If you read the newspapers, you're misinformed. So that's still true today in the United States. But I mean, I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact because the American mainstream media is losing a lot of credibility right now.
Yeah.
But the problem is China is still so culturally distant. They, even if they don't believe all the bullshit from the media on domestic matters or on something that they know well, like Latin America, they will still believe everything media says about China because they don't have a frame of reference. because most likely they have never traveled to China themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it all stems back to the same thing. It's about where you get your information. I mean, that whole COVID meme, trust the experts. I like the converse, trust the non-experts. I've actually now got a bigger affinity to those who don't proclaim to be experts in anything.
And the thing is, when they say trust science, and they cite science as some kind of religions, like this,
Yeah.
science as like a new god you just believe. No, like the whole point of science is you have theory and you test it. You test your hypothesis, and through testing to prove the validity of your theory. But most people don't understand that. The only thing they understand is, what they learn in books, in schools, or from what the mainstream media tell them, that's science. What the expert tell them, that's science. No, that's not science. Science is you propose a hypothesis, you go out in the field, you test that hypothesis, and to either disapprove it or prove it. And you can never really you can't, and it's always like a theory is only true until the point where it gets disproven. But a lot of people go through the schools, they don't really get that part about science discipline. And that's another problem. The American public education system is a whole new can of worms, because I went through that system myself. So I can tell you, most people come away with it barely even learning the English language, And so don't expect too much. Don't expect too much. You gotta talk to the people's level.
It's so strange. I mean, yeah. As you know, I'm also a cartoonist of 2 decades now, and so I've got a lot of comic books around me, and a famous French comic called Asterix and Obelix. I don't know if you know it. Okay, all right. Did you know that Asterix and Obelix is dumbed down for American audiences? They changed some of the names of the characters.
No.
Did you know that? If you don't believe me, go look it up.
No.
Look it up on Wikipedia if you don't believe me. And Wikipedia is a very, very unreliable source. But even Wikipedia says it's dumbed down. Well, I don't know if they say it's dumbed down, but they say the names are changed. But you can see that the names are easier to say.
but Germs, you'll never get Americans to say Van Gogh, okay? It's always going to be Van Gogh. I'm sorry. That's just, I didn't make that rules, but it's always going to be Van Gogh for Americans.
Sham, I wonder what the future is going to look like 50 years from now. What do you think? I mean, how do you think the world is going to look?
Well, I wish I know. I wish I have a crystal ball so I can go buy lottery. But it's a very pertinent question, because my son currently, he has dual citizenship. He received U.S. citizenship from me and Indonesian citizenship from his mother. But Indonesia does not recognize dual citizenship. So when my son reaches adulthood, so latest 21. He has to choose. He has to choose one passport. So right now, most Indonesians would definitely choose a foreign passport. But I honestly don't know by the time when my son is 21, 20 years from now, whether he would choose American passport. I can't tell you. The way things are going right now. I mean, U.S. is not on a trajectory that's going up. I mean, and this is I think everybody kind of understand it. Everybody understands U.S. There's something wrong with this roller coaster, but they don't know how to fix it. And this is and most of the American elite is not even bothered about fixing the trajectory. They're just trying to get more money out of it for themselves.
And it's strange because, I mean, someone asked me the other day, well, we get asked often actually, if we would ever emigrate, and if we were to emigrate from South Africa, where would we go? And make no mistake, South Africa is part of Africa, and it's an incredibly difficult place to live. It's not easy, right? But it's my home. So this is what I know, and I love it. And I have no desire to leave. I loved being in Europe, but I'm not European. I am African. I'm born here, and my folks are, and so on and so forth. So it's not a culture that I can assimilate into. But what is interesting is I don't think America would be top of my list, despite the fact that it seems to be very free in many ways. I don't know how long that freedom will last. It doesn't look like a good trajectory at all. And Europe too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you'll probably be labeled anti-Semite now, according to the U.S. Congress,
So the only place I want to move to, the only place, Carl, that we must move to is Israel. It's the only place in the world that we must choose.
That's the only place where we'd be safe, Jeremy. Joe Biden said that. Joe Biden said, if it's not for the Israel, no Jewish people in the world will feel safe. Well, I'm like, wait, what are you saying? You're saying United States government is not going to protect its own Jewish citizens? And I'm like, well, okay, he's got a point. U.S. government doesn't really care about its citizens, Like, you're right, Joe Biden. You're totally right. Because U.S. government doesn't care about its citizens unless have shit tons of money. That's the only people they care about. If you have shit tons of money, then the rest are just like workers, whatever.
But I just want to say this now, as we come in for a closing. I don't dislike Americans. I'm sure American people, and I know many, are great people. The mockery is really at the establishment. It's at the government. It's at the authorities. It's at those in power. It's not the people themselves.
No. I mean, definitely, American people are just like people elsewhere.
Yeah.
In most part of the world, they just want to have a better life for their family, for their kids, have better education for their kids, have health care, which their government is not giving them. And most of them also understand their government and their politician is screwing them. But they don't have a way out because our politicians are hopelessly corrupt, and they all know this. That's why in a lot of American comedy shows they laugh about it, but that's all they could do. And because let's face it, next year, I mean, I'm eligible to vote, but hey, who should I choose, Jeremy? Trump or Biden?
But at least Americans don't eat garlic, babies, and dogs.
That's right. I mean, they should eat garlic, though. Garlic is good for you.
Garlic is great. I love garlic. Carl, we're running out of time. Let's quickly chat about how can I follow you?
I am a prolific shit poster on Twitter. So go to Carl Za is my handle on Twitter. You can find me there. And I do have a Patreon, Silk and Steel podcast on Patreon, where I do a more serious work, like Chinese history. I do a China history chronologically series, which right now I'm currently at 546 BC. So one day I will reach the present in another couple of thousand years.
Carl Zahl, thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Man, what a laugh, Carl. This is the best way to go towards the end of the year. All right, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Joel, for making us sound somewhat respectable. By the way, send me an email, jermwarfare@tntradio.live. Tell me what you thought of the show, feedback, hate mail. I'm sure if you want to call us anti-Semites, you're welcome to. I'll just forward those mails on to Carl. Listen, I think there's going to be a little bit of a break between Christmas and New Year for a couple of days. So just keep that in mind. But it is that time of the year now where it becomes a little bit silly. So don't expect too much seriousness from my show. I certainly have had a very serious year. We've had a lot of hardcore topics, and I think we deserve a bit of laughter. Anyway, I'll catch you tomorrow. My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warfare, the battle of ideas.